From the little leagues
to the pros.
This is your weekly sports show.
Welcome to the Shutter Sports Podcast.
Take a seat at the table as we discuss.
Welcome to the Shutter Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Lucky Roberts, and today I'm joined by Cam Stirling and Josh Alderman for a little bit of a post-draft extravaganza we have for you. We're going to start off with our favorite pick that each team made, and maybe a couple picks that they made, our favorite day on the first day of the NBA draft. So I'm going to start over with you, Cam Stirling. What do you got?
Well, I really liked the fact that Philly went with Edgecombe. I think he would be a perfect fit. I think they're gonna start running Jared McCain actually as a point guard now instead of the two guard next to Maxey, and having a traditional two guard like Edgecombe possibly start next to Tyrese Maxey and that team possibly being healthy. I think it was a fantastic move at 3 to pass up on the controversial Ace Bailey pick. But I think the Heat grabbing Yakachonis all the way at 20 was huge. So he was rumored to go at like top 8. So I think getting that backup point guard at 20 as like a top 10 projected pick, I think it was one of the biggest steals of the draft.
When you always see Miami taking those guys who just sort of fall back because of maybe it's personality issues or something or other, or workout, like they don't have a big work ethic, but you just see them sort of welcome them back into their culture and they sort of just figure it out. I really like the Edgecombe pick as well. If you looked on Instagram, on Shutter Sports Media on Instagram, and saw my mock draft that we did before the draft, I had Edgecombe going at 3, partly because I thought it was the right pick for them. Not because I thought it was what they were going to do, but I just really loved watching Edgecombe in the tournament. I think his athleticism is something that's really undervalued. He's a really good shooter as well. He projects as a great shooter. His dribbling needs a little bit of work, but if you just look at it as a whole package, defensively, he's a demon. He's got really long arms. He works hard on defense. And offensively, he has a shot, he has a dribble, and he can get to the lane. And that's all you really need for him, especially because he's not going to be a guy who's going to have the ball in his hands every single possession, right? Because they already have the big 3 there in Philadelphia. You sort of need a guy who can play off that. And Edgecombe is going to be the perfect piece to play off that. For me, my favorite day was the Pelicans. I really liked getting Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen, coming back and getting Derek Queen at 13. He was a guy I kind of wanted for the Raptors. I know his defense is something that people worry about, but his offensive bag as a center is something you don't really see often in the draft. And for him to fall to 13 and be snapped up by the Pelicans was really good for them, especially because that was the big hole in their roster. I didn't really love the trade that they made a couple days ago, getting Jordan Poole, but I mean, we can talk about that. What do you guys think about the Jordan Poole trade?
I think pretty much getting a younger version of CJ McCollum who fits the timeline a little bit more for the Pelicans was a decent move, but I think the return for each team is fairly even, to be honest.
I couldn't agree more. I think getting Jordan Poole, again, a younger CJ McCollum, just a good dribbler, good playmaker, can hit threes like nobody's business. I think that really does help out the Pelicans, and I think it shows that they are building for the future. Picking up, again, a much younger, similar styled guy than McCollum, and then going out and getting Fears and Queen in the draft, that just shows that they are investing in the long term, and they've obviously got a project in mind.
My big fear with Jordan Poole is I don't think he contributes to winning basketball. I know he was good with the Warriors, but his offensive game he seems like just like a shot chucker. He doesn't really create for others as much as I would like him to, and his contract is huge. And so is CJ's. And he's younger than CJ, and I understand that, and their talent level is probably similar. But I think CJ has a lot better of a head on his shoulders. At least he'll be good for the young guys in Washington, where New Orleans, I guess it's getting off the CJ contract and bringing in Jordan Poole and giving him one last shot to be the guy on a team. But honestly, the trade only really made sense for New Orleans for me was that they got Sadiq Bey in it, who is sort of just this young guy who has a little bit of upside to him as well. But Washington, I thought, made a little bit more sense. But yeah, just wrapping it up here on the Pelicans, getting a Derek Queen who can be a future, like he can be a future starting big man for them, like for a long, long time. And then also getting Jeremiah Fears at 7, who can be a starting guard for them for a long, long time. This could be a draft that they look back on that really solidified their future of their rebuild. Anyway, Josh, who was your best day?
For me, I actually got two teams for best day, two teams that really flew under the radar, weren't picking at the top. I mean, for me, it's the Bulls and the Magic. Hear me out on these two, okay? For the Bulls picking up Noah Essengay, that is a big, big guy. I mean, fluid athleticism. He's got such a high motor, great stamina, great strength. I mean, he does need to add a little muscle, improve his shot, all that fun stuff. But for the Bulls, I really, really see Essengay as one of those guys that we're going to look back in a few years and say, how did this guy go 12th overall? Why wasn't he higher up in the draft? Pure raw athleticism. And just like the Pelicans, I see the Bulls building for the long term. And then moving on to the Magic, Jace Richardson at 25. Now, it is a later pick in the draft, in the first round, but I really, really like this pickup. I honestly think Richardson could have gone about a dozen places higher. Really, I do. Undersized, but a speedy stamina monster, nonetheless. I mean, yeah, he's a smaller guy. He's shorter, but it really does seem like he's got a great feel for the game, can get into the lane, kind of break down defenses with that pure speed that he brings to this young Magic team. Again, undersized concerns obviously why he dropped to 25, but I think this is a sneaky, under the radar, solid pick from the Magic. And yeah, based on those two picks, I think the Bulls and the Magic flew under the radar and had some of the best days out of any team.
I completely agree on Jace Richardson. I mean, I think, like, as a Spartans guy, I watched a lot of Jace Richardson last year. And I think after getting rid of Cole Anthony earlier on, he fits that mold plus a bit more of a jump shot. And getting him this late in the draft is extremely valuable. He could be a starting two guard on that Magic team that they've really been having a hole in for the past few years to add on to Franz and Suggs and
They
Bankero.
just picked up Desmond Bain to fill that role, but yeah,
I,
like
Oh
I,
yeah.
yeah, that is true. But I think Jace can back him up very well. I think they're loading up their guard position very well with combo guards who can shoot the three and slash a little bit too. So yeah, I 100% agree on Jace Richardson's deal.
yeah, with the Magic, you sort of look like what do they need coming into the day? And it was like a backup guard, like a depth guard who can sort of run your second unit. And they maybe a little bit of big. I'm not super sold on Wendell Carter and Mo Wagner, but they sort of lost. They were at picking at 25. The run of bigs was in the teens, right? And they were all
Mhm.
the quality bigs were already gone. And so you sort of look around and see what the best situation is available for a guard, and you have Jace Richardson coming in, and like you said, he's undersized, and that is a big worry. But if you look past that, he has lots of skill that you really don't find with a number 25 pick. With the Bulls, I would have liked them take Carter Bryant in that situation. I know Essengate has a lot of um, potential, like, but I think Carter Bryant is just a little bit more of a full picture. And maybe the Bulls aren't really looking for a full picture because they're starting their rebuild, and I get that. I just like Carter Bryant more as a prospect, and I think the Spurs kind of stole him at 14.
I think that's honestly a fair take, but for me, Essengay is a long-term pick. You're definitely stashing him in the hopes that he will turn into something big. I think Bryant is more of a in a year or two will already be at a high level. Gay is more of a 3 to 4 years, he'll be at a high level. Already, though, playing, in Germany at the high levels that come in European basketball, that's a good sign for me. Performing well in Europe, internationally, in those types of leagues, that's always going to be, a positive, a booster in my eyes. It's one thing to play in NCAA where, depending on your division, you could just be padding your stats against your local community college. But to me, getting to play in Europe against some of that continent's very, very best, that shows promise. And for him to perform at the level that he did with Ulm, I think the sky's the limit for the guy.
Absolutely. And so we had some draft day trades that I think I would like to cover now. I think the biggest name out of all these trades was Mark Williams going to Phoenix. And we haven't really had a conversation on the Shutter Sports podcast about the moves that the Suns have made recently with Kevin Durant and also now acquiring Mark Williams. So I guess I just want to start it there. What do you think of the Kevin Durant trade and also the Mark Williams trade for them?
I really like the return they got for Kevin Durant, getting 6 picks, clearly going for pure draft capital. I do think they're gonna release Nick Richards now that they have Williams and drafted Malawak to get even more under the dead cap. But yeah, I really like that they're just going for pure capital and not trying to replace Kevin Durant because you really can't replace someone like that. So. Even though like 5 second round picks, I know second round picks are looked at as like almost nothing, but 5 second round picks adds up, and that's rookies that you can develop
It's
later
also stuff
on.
like stuff you can throw into trades if you need to as well.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just pure capital that they got, and the 10th pick in the draft, getting Malawak, who I think was one of the biggest steals, even though he's going only like 3 or 4 picks below what he was projected. I think he was one of the biggest steals for the Suns.
Yeah,
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
that's all you, Josh.
I honestly couldn't agree more. It was really an absolute fleece by the Suns. Getting that much draft capital, that much return for Kevin Durant. Yeah, it's, Kevin Durant, but he's getting up there in age. There's injury concerns, as always. And if he can still perform at the level that he has been for the last decade or so, so being able to get that much in return, if anything, it puts the Suns in a better spot than they were before. And I really love that big, big pickup of Malwak.
I actually liked it a lot for Houston here. Um, because Jalen Green is one of those players who's similar to Jordan Poole in a way where sure he scores a lot of points and he gets a lot of stuff and he's super young, but I don't really love how he contributes to winning. I think he takes a lot of poor quality shots. I think his athleticism is off the charts. And if he could tap into that in a way that John Morant taps into it, I think he could have way more value. And I think that's what Phoenix is sort of banking on. But as like the choices that he makes with the basketball in his hands, I don't always love. Dylan Brooks, also, contract is a little expensive, right? And so getting off that contract, sure, you know what you're getting from Dylan Brooks. He's a good shooter. He can create a little bit. But I think packaging the contract to Dylan Brooks, the, wasted potential-ish of Jalen Green and the number 10 pick to get Kevin Durant, I think is a little bit of a steal. I know he's, I think, 39 now. And but he's not really shown a drop off to this point offensively. He can still get to his spots. Defensively, maybe not as impactful as he used to be, but he still is a really tall four who can shoot the ball really, really well and create for others. And for Houston, I think that impacts their winning a lot more than Jalen Green would. And so I really like the pick for them. I understand it for Phoenix, getting all these young guys sort of resetting their timeline here. But I liked it for Houston more. And then it's interesting because I was like, okay, they're going to get Malawach and he's going to be their big of the future. And then they also dip back into the big market with Mark Williams, and it's not really like a situation where you can play them both at the same time. They're both really traditional centers. Um, but I think they're sort of looking at it where you looked at what the Mavericks did 2 years ago to go to the finals. They had interchangeable bigs, right? When one gets tired, they can put the other one in, and they're very, 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 very similar. And if you look at what the Thunder had this year, they also had two bigs that they would interchange depending on the situation. So I think maybe that's where the future of the league is going, maybe just with getting two centers who can both play, 25 minutes a game and be impactful because centers get tired quickly. Um, but anyway, let's some other trades here of note. Do you guys want to talk about the Boston trades with obviously them sort of calling the season for Jason Tatum? They're going to punt on this season. They've traded away Kristaps Porzingis to Atlanta, getting back Georges Niang and a future second round pick, just a complete dump of a contract. And then they also gave away Drew Holiday and swapped him for Anthony Simons, who I'm not quite sure what his contract is like. But that was another interesting move.
Well, I know for a fact that Brad Stevens got this team under the dead cap in 48 hours off these two trades, which is unreal for how much payroll was on that Boston Celtics roster. And they got draft capital through the Drew Holiday trade and two second rounders with Anthony Simons, who, in my opinion, is taking into account age and skill. I'd say he's maybe not better, but on the same level as Drew Holiday. So getting a cheaper, younger version who doesn't bring the same defense, but possibly recovers in his slashing ability is insane. And the Kristaps trade, I understand, but yeah, I would have liked maybe a couple second round picks instead of just the one and Georges Niang. I think that's a little too low for Kristaps Porzingis, but then again, it's a huge contract that they just had to get off.
I'm surprised there wasn't a bigger market for Kristaps. Like
Mhm.
the fact that he was just sort of a neutral guy where you just get nothing back in return is really interesting because he's a big who can stretch the floor. Like I think that's so valuable in today's NBA. But yeah, I guess the contract was too big for some of these teams to bear. And he also protects the rim a little bit. But yeah, for the Simons trade, I can at first I was shocked that Boston did that trade. I can sort of wrap my head around it more now. For Portland, I really don't get it. I think Drew Holiday is a much better player than Anthony Simons, and I think he contributes to winning much more than Anthony Simons does with his defense, and he's still a shot maker. Um, but are they a winning team? Like he's older than Simons, so it seems like they're gonna have to be. They want to be a winning team, or are they gonna flip Holiday? And that might be what you have to look for.
I
I
think it's
honestly
either. Oh, go ahead,
go
Josh.
ahead. All you.
Okay. I think either they do flip Drew Holiday or they I think Drew Holiday just embraces the veteran point guard role because you got Scoot Henderson, you got Shaden Sharp over there. They haven't had a veteran to lead the way at all early on in their careers. And I think Drew Holiday is one of the best teachers and best locker room guys in the league as far as how well rounded he is and how much he brings to the table on and off the court. So I think keeping him around would be nice. Obviously, they don't have much on the payroll, so that is okay as long as they get rid of Aiton. But I think either way, Drew Holiday brings value to Portland.
I think the same is true when you look at Simons going to Boston. Obviously, you know, getting rid of a contract that big for Holiday is a big move. That's a positive for the Celtics. But the fact of the matter is, he's one of the most underrated defenders in the NBA, one of the best locker room leaders, bar none. But getting Simons in return, I think really does work out in Boston's favor. Like that gets an A plus for me. He is a good shot. Like he's got a great shot. He's a great playmaker. Obviously, his defense isn't where it should be at this stage of his career, but Boston is a little bit more of a defensive-minded team. They can, stuff offensive players with ease. They've got more than enough defenders. Why not pick up a guy that has a lethal shot?
Yeah, he'll also get a bunch of usage with Tatum being injured, so I can understand it from that sort of perspective. Um, so let's sort of move on here to our least favorite decisions from the day. Getting back into the draft sort of stuff here. What were your least favorite moves of the day?
I'll go
Well,
first.
yeah.
Hope three words for you. Colin Murray Boyles.
Oh man, I was going the exact same direction.
Yep. Colin Murray Boyles, 6'7" wing. The Raptors have enough, like 6'6" to
I,
six
I,
eight
s- I
wings.
saw him get compared to like him being Charmeleon to Scotty Barnes Charizard. Like he's just the underdeveloped Scotty Barnes.
Honestly, that's a great
Six
comparison.
seven, can't shoot, an all around athletic freak, but I mean,
You got Mobo,
yep.
Colin Murray Boyles as the intermediate, Scotty Barnes. That's the evolution chain right there. Um, Look, I don't hate it actually as much as a lot of Raptors fans do. I would have rathered Maluach. I would have rathered Derek Queen. I probably would have rathered Carter Bryant, but he was my fourth pick out of those guys. And I do understand it's really going back to they still believe in Vision 6-9. Deep down,
Mm.
Masai and Bobby still believe that Vision 6-9 can be successful in the NBA. And Murray Boyles, when you look at his stuff, his defensive tape is incredible. Like, as a 6'7" guy, he was playing center and he was absolutely neutralizing them. He's a heavy guy. He can't be backed down. And so sure they can get their shot off, but he does really great positional defense. He can cover um, two guards. He's covered. I saw clips of him playing great defense against Trey Johnson at Texas. He has great foot speed. He can pick off. He runs he defends pick and roll extremely well. So do we see him play center for the Raptors? I think we might do. See him play a little bit of small ball center off the bench. Him and Mobo sort of in that role. Offensively, he can get to the rim. He has a little bit of dribble package. You can see a very similar to, like you said, Scotty coming out, a very similar little bit of dribble package. You can see him developing a dribble package that Scotty's developed. The shot is further back than Scotty's shot was, and it's might not ever come, which is why you sort of have to project him as a center because the shot is not coming. And it's going to be interesting to see if he can still do the stuff against centers in the NBA compared to the centers in college. So that's the worries.
Yeah, it was right away. Even on the draft broadcast, they were comparing him to Draymond Green. That shows that, yeah, obviously the defensive ability is there, but the guy can't shoot to save his life. And if he can't develop his dribbling more, develop even rebounding, shot creation, anything at all that's going to contribute offensively to this team, there really isn't much of a role on the Raptors. I think my main issue, he is a fantastic player, the best defender in this draft, hands down, but there were better players available that better
This doesn't
suited.
fit the Raptors play style right now.
Exactly. Doesn't fit where they are as a franchise right now. Picking up Ingram, starting to build a franchise that will contend for the playoffs in a year or two. That this is more of a long-term pick, and that doesn't fit with where the Raptors are right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought Malawak would be an incredible fit next to Pirtle and run that double big with one younger, fast-paced lob threat to Pirtle's stocky, cemented defense. But I
Mhm.
also want to point out that the Brooklyn Nets had 5 first-round picks, and I don't think they hit on any of them. I think Ager Demon was picked way too early.
That was
I think
mine.
I think Nolan Traore, like he's being stereotypically like compared to Killian Hayes, but he plays just like him. He's got a wonky jumper, hasn't played like North American basketball and entering a pretty pretty stacked top of the draft class. And I don't think he can stand with the guards who were picked earlier than him or later. Like Yakachonis was on the board at the time. He was a top 5 college basketball player last year. Will Riley picked 2 spots behind him. Would have been a great combo guard in Brooklyn. But yeah, I don't see one pick from the Brooklyn Nets out of 5, which is already out of this world. Not one pick that I really liked.
I completely agree. I found it funny that Josh stole yours and then you took mine afterwards. Um, um, yeah, I really didn't understand the Igor Demon trade. I was watching the Nets ahead of the Raptors, and I was
I
like,
would have taken
please don't take
Yakachonis over
Malawash. Please
Demon
don't
at
take
8.
Queen. I was
Totally.
thinking that. I was like, please, up for the Nets. Because I thought they were going to take a big. And they take Igor Demon, who wasn't even the best guard on the. He's a non-shooter as a guard, right? That's what you have to realize. His shot is not there, almost to a like not as bad as Murray Boyle's, but he has a lot of developing to do there. They kept talking about his ability to run a pick and roll, but outside of that and his passing ability, offensively, he's a little bit of a nothing. He doesn't put pressure on the rim. He can't shoot the basketball. Um, I know. I think he's a good combo guard. He's big as a point guard, so he'll be a good defender if he can project as that. But I just really don't like those prospects coming out that are guards who can't shoot. Every single year, those guys I don't think work out. And we'll see if he can develop a shot, but I really didn't understand that pick for the Brooklyn Nets. And like you said, Cam, a lot of their picks didn't make a lot of sense.
I will jump in here and defend one of their picks. Only one. They fumbled on 4 out of 5. But at 27,
Danny
getting
Wolf.
Danny Wolf.
No.
Danny Wolf for a late first round big.
Great
I
modern
mean,
big.
a modern big, not explosive athletically, not the best defender by any means, stoppable on his day, but he has the size to make an impact. It seems like he's got a good feel for the game, watching that draft tape, just great floor vision, IQ, great passer. And for a late first round pickup, 27th pick in the draft,
Well,
I
those
don't
guys
mind
are the
that at
best
all.
player in the NBA right now. So
Okay, so my as I mentioned multiple times, my pick was taken. So I'm gonna take a look here, and I think my least favorite pick here. I just want to have a talk about Ace Bailey here. And during the draft, literally in the middle of the drafts, I was watching the ESPN broadcast, and they were saying, I didn't know this. Ace Bailey hasn't taken a workout with any team. He's
right.
the only player in the draft from America who's done that, who chose to do that.
Mhm.
And he also did not want to go to Utah. And that's just a huge red flag for me. An incredible red flag for me. And I understand why Utah took him. I think at that point in the draft, Trey Johnson might have been a shout, but he's one of the best guys. He has the talent to be as good as a Harper as an Edgecombe, right? I think he has more talent than a Knuppel has, right? I think Knuppel's game is a lot more better for the NBA, and I actually like that Hornets pick because he's a professional guy, and I think that's something that they're missing. The Jazz are hoping that they can change that outlook from Ace Bailey, but it's a huge red flag the fact that he didn't work out for any NBA team and that he was picking and chooses places he wanted to go. I mean, really, you can only afford to do that if you're a Cooper Flag type player. And I don't think he is. Ace Bailey's athleticism, uncharted. his defensive potential, uncharted. I just really, really would worry about that pick if I'm the Utah Jazz because you knew he didn't want to go there and you knew he didn't take a workout with you.
Yeah, we've seen that happen with Danny Ainge with a couple other teams just take players out of spite for not wanting to work out. But I think they did take the best player available. They're in the part of the rebuild where they really look for the best player available. I think the Bulls did the same thing with the Senge. I think like they have time to work on project players and like you said, an uncharted player like Bailey. But I want to talk about the Spurs a little bit as well. I think they could have gotten a haul for that second pick, and instead they take their fourth point guard on the roster. And really think Dylan Harper is by far the second best player in the draft, but they could have gotten a huge haul trading that second overall pick. And they already have De'Aaron Fox. Harper's not starting over him. Castle just won Rookie of the Year. He's not playing over him. Chris Paul still gets minutes on that team. Dylan Harper is too ball dominant to play small forward or even shooting guard for that matter. I could see them letting go of De'Aaron Fox and going full youth. I don't think they needed to if they traded that pick. So I really do not like that fit. I don't think anybody could have been picked there. If they were the Spurs, they weren't taking Bailey. Edgecombe is not the second best player in that draft. Nobody else could even compete for that second overall pick. So I think the only option was to trade that pick, and they didn't. And I don't. I thought that was the only move for the Spurs.
I think it is
No,
definitely a loaded roster in that spot. But like you said, I think it's possible they just didn't have any options. Like I think it's possible the draft capital that they could have gotten back or the players that they could have gotten back just weren't there. And so like weren't there to the point that the upside that Dylan Harper has. So you're gonna take Dylan Harper and figure it out. Um, but I agree, it's a little bit of a rough spot.
no, I completely agree. Yeah, it may just be the case that the return that teams were offering just wasn't what they were looking for, but a player the caliber of Harper is just going to get lost in the sauce, for lack of a better term. Now with, like Cam said, he's the fourth point guard on their roster. That is something that the Spurs just didn't need to do. By far the best player available, but that doesn't mean you should take him.
I think he projects more as a shooting guard, in my opinion. I think
Ooh.
he'll play shooting guard in the league. In the same way that Shea plays shooting guard. You know what I mean? Um, where he starts out as a shooting guard, and then as he develops his stuff, he becomes the point guard of the team. But I think right now where his skill level is at, I think he projects as a shooting guard. And so the question is him or Castle is really the question that you have. So I don't know. They'll figure it out. And I didn't hate it just because of that. Just one more thing. I thought Ace Bailey had Charlotte Hornets written all over him because he's a guy with personality questions surrounding him, and the Hornets love to take those guys. And I was gonna be like, if they picked him, I was gonna be like, Ace Bailey is gonna be a flop for them because you see it time after time. There is a culture problem in Charlotte. There is a big time culture problem in Charlotte. Um, these guys go to Charlotte and they sort of get wrapped up in the fact that they're NBA players. They get wrapped up in this culture is that not really
They get
about
wrapped up in the Michael Jordan culture.
yeah, it's
Oh
And
not
yeah.
really
they're
about
all going to be stars like their owner, and they just never build a cult like an identity of their own, and they never find their way in Charlotte, and it just never works out.
but
It's a team
a guy
where
like
dreams
what?
go to die.
Yeah, absolutely. But a guy like Con Knuckle who has has contributed to a winning team. Like Ace Bailey with Rutgers, how did they and Dylan Harper, how were they not a tournament team? It's not like they played in the SEC, which was by far the best conference this year. They were playing in the Big Ten, which is a good conference. Rutgers has to be in the tournament. Like, if you have two of the top five players in the draft, that's unacceptable. And I think it sort of speaks to the culture issues. And I thought the Hornets were going to take him and ruin him. We'll see if the Jazz can fix his personality issues. I think Con Knuppel has an exemplary personality, and that's why I loved the pick from the Charlotte Hornets. Because
I,
sure, he
I
has a little less potential, but I think he's going to be focused on basketball. And I think he's actually going to be able to develop here a little bit in Charlotte more than an Ace Bailey would.
I don't love the Knipple pick in Charlotte because I feel like they need a bit more of an X factor player. I think going after players that play their roles right and start building a team is not where Charlotte is going right now. They need players who can carry their own and come into this team with an identity, not because this team doesn't have an identity. So I think Trey Johnson would have been a great pick in Charlotte. I think going for a pure scorer, a guy with X factor, and like Ace Bailey or Trey Johnson would have been the move over Knipple because he he's a player that fits into a system and can contribute with his role. Kind of like how Reed Shepard went to Houston. He has a role to play as a pure scoring guard. He didn't play that role very well this year, but he has that role on a winning roster. So I think that system type player cannot succeed in Charlotte because they don't have a system.
I like Knipple a lot as a player. I was really high on him coming out of like coming into the draft. Um, I thought he was definitely worthy of a fourth overall pick. And sure, like I think he's gonna be the best non-star you can have. Like, I think he's gonna be exemplary in the locker room. I think he's gonna contribute to his own role as good as possible. He's gonna be a knockdown shooter. He's gonna play good defense. He's gonna make smart decisions when the basketball is in his hands. I don't think he's gonna be a star. And I think what you have to understand though is like I said, like you have all these guys who think they're stars, and in Charlotte, you sort of just need a guy who's gonna play his role. So I think we just difference of opinion, which is fine. Um, is there anything else you guys sort of want to talk about from this draft? Anything that's striking out towards you?
One more thing. I'm surprised, absolutely shocked that no one has brought this up yet. Portland Trailblazers, 16th overall pick, Hanson Yang. The guy was sitting in the stands, projected to be a mid to late second round pick. And then with the 16th overall, Portland picks the guy up when they already have, too many bigs as it is. Like 7'1", big bodied. That's fine. He's a terrific passer, shot better at the combine than expected. Honestly, than a lot of people expected him to do. But the fact of the matter is, the way that he plays, he's not a great defender. He makes a lot of post shots, and that's not going to fly in a modern NBA game. He just, he might turn out to be a decent backup, a decent rotation. I don't, I like, I wish all the best for the guy. Hope things turn out for him. Hope he turns out, to prove me wrong. But as things stand right now, looking at it on paper, not a good move at all to really reach up that high for a mid to late draft guy. Mid to late second round
Yeah,
draft guy.
I think they go wing at this pick instead, either Will
Hmm.
Riley or Austin Newell there. But yeah, they got DeAndre Ayton, who probably will be coming on off the books nonetheless. Donovan Clingan, who is a future star, 100%. They still have
Hmm.
Robert Williams on the books. And I think this was a fairly useless pick, to be honest. Yeah, getting a wing in this draft would have been huge. You have Tumani Kamara, who's been playing well on defense. Shaden Sharp still finding his way, hasn't been that all-star slasher that we saw coming into the draft. He's slowly developing to that point, but I think adding one more 3 and D guy like a Will Riley would have added a lot more than this out of nowhere pick. But we've seen out of nowhere picks thrive in the NBA, so I could see him finding his place on Portland or on another team later in his career. But for where Portland is right now, there were just better options.
Yeah, I to be honest with you guys, I didn't know much about him, and that's why I didn't bring him up. I thought it was really interesting that we have another player drafted out of China. I think that's great for them. I think it's great for the league.
Totally.
Drafted in the first round. But yeah, I don't really know. He jumped up like how I think he was projected like 46. He jumps up like 30 picks to be selected there. We'll see if he can find a role as a big. We'll see
I
if he
also
has
think,
the foot
yeah,
speed to pick up guys at the 3-point line. We'll see if he can develop. But yeah, interesting pick for sure.
yeah, I also think a stretch four would have been nice on the Trailblazers roster, like McNeely. He went way late. He was projected around that 16th pick. So yeah, as I said, there were just better options on the board for Portland, who are clearly in a rebuild and need to make use of all these mid first round picks that they have. And yeah, it's just missed opportunity. That's all.
And I will say, just to wrap this little part up, the fact that you, Lucky, a basketball guru, don't know who the hell this guy is, don't know anything about him, and are just as shocked as the rest of us that he was picked 16th, that speaks volumes to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, all I knew was the stuff that came up on the screen. It basically said Hanson Yang, center, King Dao in China. He's 7'1". He's 240 pounds or whatever. It's like, yep, that's what I know about him. It's basically what they told me. We'll see. We'll see. Interesting pick. But I think that is going to be it for the NBA draft, post-draft extravaganza. We thank you guys for joining us on the Shutter Sports podcast. Be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And don't be shy to join the discussion on any platform at Shutter Sports Media. Until next time, I'm Lucky Roberts, joined by Cam Stirling and Josh Alderman, and this has been the Shutter Sports Podcast.